Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sprint 207 review. This is a normal 2-week sprint ending on March 6th. Let's get started. I'll start with the overview. Melody will do the UI, Adam on providers, Joe on the platform, and Keenan on the API. As you can see, our cadence is a little bit back to the normal with 70 PRs merged this sprint and 92 open. And it was a fair mix of bugs and enhancements this sprint. And over to Melody.
Yeah, thanks. So on the UI side, we had 19 PRs get merged into UI Classic and 5 PRs get merged into UI Services. Starting through the enhancements, Jeffrey converted the company tags page from Haml to React. I added some additional filters to improve the accuracy of the results, as well as the quality, some improvements to the timeline filter page, and some quality of life improvements as well. The AutoSDE team added logic to parse their new service capability columns. There was a typo in the schedule form page that got fixed. The AutoSDE team also added a limit to how long names for host initiator groups can be. Jumping on to kind of the bug side of all things, a method wasn't properly introduced in the chargeback reports page, which caused some issues, so Jeffrey included it and it fixed all the problems. Keenan fixed a bug where records were not coming back ordered by timestamp, which was what we expected. The AutoSDE team found that it was possible to request creating a volume for storage services resource list, which led to several backend errors, and they've since remediated this. I fixed a bug where the link component in our MAQ structured list tables was not properly redirecting the user. And Jeffrey removed some more old alerts code, which fixed an error on the provider dashboard page. We had several issues, PRs related to internationalization, where Joe updated ARPO and JSON file with the latest translated strings. And as for security issues, we regenerated the YARNLock files for both the UI Classic and the UI Services, which allowed us to bump several packages to their latest versions. And we also went directly into package JSON and forced updated certain problematic packages. We had some updates to our tests as well. Jason updated several of our tests to be able to handle the recent changes Chrome made to their Chrome headless mode, as well as fixed a bug in our spec JavaScript tests. And a couple of miscellaneous bugs that were fixed. Jason refactored a lot of the duplication and redundancy around the build audit methods. As a consequence of regenerating some of the YARNLock files, we could remove some forced resolution, so we were able to clean that up. And also, next slide, Akil cleaned up some technical debt and reworked some of the code formatting for the schedule edit page. And that's it for the UI side. Over to Adam.
Thanks, Melody. For core this sprint, we fixed a bug where additional regions that were added via settings were no longer working due to way that the config gem was handling 2H, and so it wasn't recursively converting things to hashes, and so that was causing some failures on the when we went to use the settings. So we got that fixed up. In addition to handling nil additional regions if somebody mistyped something in the settings, the refactoring that we did wasn't handling that case, so we had a follow-up PR to fix that up. And the AutoSDE team added core methods for update and delete to host initiator groups, which they will use following this section here. So AutoSDE implemented the volume clone operation for their volume types. They also implemented the host initiator create, update, and delete operations for host initiator groups. They refactored the way that they're collecting capabilities for physical storages to more closely match how capabilities are stored for the rest of the provider types. And they improved their post-create refresh to handle multiple volumes so that they can do the checks in all in one check, as opposed to splitting them up into a bunch of individual checks when you create multiple cloud volumes in one shot. Next slide. Power VC implemented service catalog support. So they found that the subclass of OpenStack wasn't sufficient to show service catalog support for provisioning. So they subclassed the provision workflow and a couple of other small things so that now you can select Power VC from the dropdown for service catalog creation. For OpenStack, Keenan changed the host verify credentials implementation to use the only the default from core. They basically copied and pasted the method from core and tweaked one thing, and so part of his refactoring to the core host change allowed us to just completely delete the OpenStack method. And for Overt, we fixed passing a certificate authority cert via DDF parameters. We were looking for the wrong key, and so we were passing nil always, which was causing failures if you did want to verify SSL credentials with a custom CA. Next slide. And for Rev, we deleted the OVN Network Manager event catcher. This was, I believe, just copied when they added the Network Manager, which is coming from OpenStack, since OVN is an OpenStack compatible API. But Rev doesn't have any of the services like Ceilometer, which are required for the event catcher to connect to. So it was essentially just trying to connect, failing, et cetera, et cetera. So since it wasn't doing anything, we just deleted it to save an extra worker running, which wasn't actually doing anything. For VMware, Keenan changed the default host credential type to be web services, which was only used by VMware, but was the default in core. And so every other provider had to override it. So he's changed it to just make SSH the default in core and then web services as a change in the VMware provider. And so that cleaned up a lot of the other providers and actually also the VMware one based on how we did it, which was nice. We set the VMware Web Service logger to Vimlog, which was a change that we made a while ago in VMware Web Service to allow a pluggable logger, but set it in the engine initializer, and so it wasn't being used. So we got that fixed up. We also fixed positional argument to keyword args refactoring that was causing delete snapshot for SSA to be failing. This was brought to our attention by a community user, which was nice. We also fixed some of the logging, and Vix dislib was class level, and we were only using had an instance level logger in the mixin, and so those were failing. And we also fixed a URI escape issue in Ruby 3 in the VMware Web Service gem. And that is it for providers. Over to Joe.
Okay, for ManageIQ core enhancements, Keenan improved the pagination filtering in RBAC. Jason simplified the common code that was used for masking passwords, and he added support for partial matches. Nazar added the Kafka broker health checks in the server orchestrator code. Next, Keenan enhanced the host validation to improve how we verify credentials for both hosts that have already been saved and ones that we have yet to save. I extracted the EMS event specific code out of event stream and into the correct place, the EMS event subclass. Next, Frank provided updated translations based upon the mid-February English catalogs. I cleaned up some Postgres installation instructions. Keenan extracted a method to better enable pre-processing for expressions for Ruby or for SQL. Deleting code acts as an enhancement, so in my book, so Keenan gets the nod for removing host discovery from core. Next slide. For ManageIQ core bugs, Adam fixed a bug introduced during Ruby 3.0 work where the user argument passed to the provision workflow was added in the wrong position. Next, Frank squashed some translation bug fixes. Then Adam already mentioned the 2 fixes around the provider additional regions. I fixed the event stream filtering that's used by timelines by adding a common method to filter by EMS event or MIQ event for the various event mix-in classes. And Keenan fixed some bugs in MIQ expression to Ruby and sped up the date creation by eliminating some string to date parsing. On to Keenan with API.
Good morning, afternoon, whatever. we have addition to add initiative groups. Leprin added the delete and update functionality. Nisar removed in overt. We were loading provider codes and causing some specs to fail. So he removed those. Jason fixed some of our logging to handle partial password matches. So it does a better job at removing passwords from our logs. And Adam fixed cloud volume specs to no longer on the cloning support. He fixed them so they no longer fail. That's no tongue today. On to Jason.
All right, and that's it for our Sprint 207 review. Our next review, Sprint 208, will be on March 22nd at the usual place and time. And I'd like to thank all our presenters today. Thank everyone in the community for finding bugs and helping us try things out. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.